What is up, John Harris? How are you?
Hello, hello. Greetings from Tallahassee.
Hi, greetings from still sunny Orlando. Hey, everybody, welcome, welcome. We are so excited to round out what has been an absolutely incredible day. Pride at the Capitol, the first one of its kind. We have so much to cover, so I'm not going to take a lot up at the front. It is happy hour. I regret to inform you I'm drinking sparkling water, but to all of those of you who've grabbed a cocktail, please have one for me. My name is Brandon Wolf. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the media relations manager here at Equality Florida, and I'm with my illustrious co-host in Tallahassee.
Hey, folks. I'm John Harris Maurer, he, him, his, the Public Policy Director for Equality Florida. So we are so glad, as Brandon mentioned, that you can join us tonight for our virtual happy hour. We've had a day packed full of activities, folks doing some really great outreach, contacting their lawmakers about LGBTQ priorities for the legislative session, and a number of programs throughout the day. So we kicked it off first thing this morning with our morning tea segment with a special co-host, Nick Harris, who is a great guest and helped us welcome two of our sort of rock star LGBTQ candidates and now House members, Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith and Representative Michelle Rayner Goolsby. So we had a great morning.
I have to tell you, John Harris, morning tea needs to be a regular segment. I need Representative Rayner Goolsby in my life every morning. I need her energy. I need that fire. I need Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith to give me that injection of morning tea. And I thought you and Nick were just fabulous. So I'm all in. I'm ready to make it a segment. Nadine, if you're listening, let's talk about how we can do this on a regular basis.
Let's get it booked. Both those representatives are very well known to our community here, and they both keep it real. So it was a terrific chance to talk about some of the really big issues that they're facing in this legislative session, some of what the legislature is facing overall. We know Representative Rayner Goolsby is a champion on our issues. In her very first session, she's already leading, has filed the bill to repeal Florida's marriage ban. That is years outdated, unconstitutional, but still on the books. And so she is really fighting to move that in the legislature against some substantial odds. But I'm so relieved every day to have a fighter like that on our team in the Capitol. Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith also reminded us of a great victory we have already seen earlier this year. And that was a really key development with the Florida Commission on Human Relations. That is basically the state agency that processes non-discrimination issues for the state under the State Civil Rights Act. And Equality Florida has been working with the commission really since last summer when we had this terrific watershed ruling from the Supreme Court in the Bostock case that established non-discrimination protections for the LGBTQ community under existing federal law. Yeah. So what we've been working on and what Representative Smith talked us through a little bit this morning was how the commission has now extended that interpretation and really just recognized it at the state level. So thrilled that no matter where you live in Florida, those protections are available to you. We do have a discrimination reporting tool on Equality Florida's website that you can use if you have issues, and we're very happy to reach out to anybody and help with some of those issues as they arise. But again, just some great news to start off our day.
Absolutely. And cheers to that. Cheers to huge wins. We've been through a lot over the last 4 and 5 years. And to be honest with you, I wasn't quite sure, where this new year, this new administration, this sort of turning of the page would take us. But I've been overwhelmed by all the good news and the incredible champions. I see that Commissioner Sepro is here watching us tonight. So thank you, thank you, thank you. She is the champion who brought us this incredible win on the Commission for Human Relations. So we are so honored to be joined tonight by you, Monica, and really by all of you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some other stuff we've got going today, but please, by all means, this is a happy hour. So grab your drink, jump in the chat, introduce yourself, meet somebody new. If you got questions for our guests tonight, please make sure to jump in there and ask those questions. We'll try to get to those as well. John Harris, I want to talk a little bit about the middle of the day, because that for me was the most powerful sort of component of our day. At noon, we hosted a press conference, and this featured our transgender equality program. And that's because there are a number of anti-trans bills moving through the legislature right now. And not just anti-trans bills, but these are really targeted at trans kids. And so, while it's gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching, I think this was an opportunity that we saw to be able to share some of those stories of how trans people are actually living, how trans kids are experiencing school and sports and family. And I was just blown away as we heard not only from State Representatives Escamani and Smith, who I think we'll hear from State Representative Escamani again tonight, but we also had some of our most incredible champions in the community. We had our Director of Trans Equality, Gina Duncan. We had Nathan Brummer, who is one of our board members. And then we had some fierce dragon moms, we call them, who are parents of transgender young people. We had a fabulous soccer coach on the line. And we rounded it out, of course, with Orange County property appraiser Amy Mercado, who is a dragon mom herself. I was just touched and moved by the powerful stories of what participating in sports and being a part of a peer community feels like for trans young people. I don't know that I've ever heard it in such, raw and authentic terms. And I was just so proud of our parents, our moms today, of our advocates. And I'm always so proud of everyone who's on the line today for all you do for these young people. These are powerful stories. And if you get a chance to go back through our videos, I encourage you to check out the press conference from earlier today.
Yeah, I agree, Brandon. An incredibly impactful moment. Folks can find that press conference on Equality Florida's Facebook page, and I believe on our YouTube page as well. But we so appreciate those families coming and sharing their stories and the advocacy that they are doing on behalf of trans youth around Florida. If you've been participating in our Pride at the Capitol Day all day, we thank you for those actions. If you haven't had a chance yet to get involved, a lot of those actions really go to the heart of the matter on these anti-trans bills that we've been seeing. It is a coordinated attack, unfortunately, that we're seeing across the nation. We know that these bad bills have been filed in more than 25 states, just like what we're seeing here in Florida. So we've got an Action Center link that we can get dropped in the chat. And we would love for you to reach out to your lawmaker, reach out to leadership, whether that is on social media, through email, or by making a call, to, again, just drive home the point that what we're talking about are some of our most at-risk youth. And they really need our love and support, not these bills that just demonize their existence.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we have so many guests, and I am really excited about this. I told everyone on my social media I'm going to do my best to channel Oprah. We are not taking down monarchies today, but we're going to come real close with all the tea we have to spill about what's going on with equality in the state of Florida. But before we get there, we didn't do this alone. And I think it's really important for us to recognize our partners who made this possible today. So a huge shout out to the Human Rights Campaign, to the One Orlando Alliance, to St. Pete Pride, the Center here in Orlando, to Planned Parenthood, to ACLU of Florida, and of course to Florida Now, every single one of our incredible partners who've made today possible. This is just the first Pride at the Capitol, but I know that we have a ton more in store over the years. I'm just getting started, and it's sparkling water now. We may switch to wine later tonight, and we'll have a million ideas by the end of the broadcast. But special thanks to our partners for helping make it possible today.
Absolutely. And while Brandon may not be trashing monarchies, I'm sure we will have at least one queen on the line tonight. We are so excited to have all of you joining us for virtual happy hour as we cap off the first Pride at the Capitol. Before we get into some of our very exciting special guests, we did want to turn it over to Equality Florida's Executive Director, Nadine Smith, who is joining us from Tampa Bay.
Hey,
hello, Nadine. Hey.
I thought you were going to do the Queen segue, but it didn't happen. But it's all right. I am joining you.
You're one of at least one or two queens that are joining us tonight.
But I'm toasting everybody with my Love Wins cup that I got right after marriage equality from our board chair. And, Brandon just thanked the organizations that are sponsoring, co-sponsoring Pride at the Capitol with us. And I want to take a moment to thank the other folks who are really the only reason that these events are successful. And it's the volunteers. It's our volunteer lobbyists. It's the people who turn out, who respond to our action alerts, who engage online, who show up in person. And it's never been more important. You know, it is a strange time. We have experienced incredible victories. We've overcome a great deal in this past year, but we're also facing an extraordinary backlash. And the worst part of this backlash is that it's directed at the most vulnerable in our community. We saw anti-trans bills introduced last year that would have put doctors in prison for providing health care to trans youth. Those bills are back, and this time they are being introduced in a coordinated effort all across the country. We have to stand up. We have to stand together, and we can't relent even a little bit. And you know, sometimes when people ask me about this work, and I've been doing it for a little while now, and they ask me if I get burnt out, and I say, you know, I don't get burnt out because I'm really fueled by love. I'm really fueled by the incredible desire to be the adult I wish had been in my life when I was a kid. And so I'm really moved by the fact that not only do I get to be that adult, but all of us do. And we saw that last night in Brevard County, where the same toxic and mean-spirited thinking behind these anti-trans youth bills showed up in Brevard. And the good news there is that those of us standing on the side of equality and fairness and justice outnumbered those standing on the side of hate and dehumanizing language. And there's a video that I saw from that night, and it really crystallized for me this moment that we're in. And if you can picture in your mind a gauntlet of adults with bullhorns yelling to these young people walking into the school board meeting with their parents and their friends, they were calling them all kinds of names. They were calling these children pedophiles. They were telling these children that they shouldn't exist, that they needed to go back in the closet. And I want to say to the legislature, you have a choice. You are either with that crowd taunting, harassing, and bullying those kids, or you're escorting those children to safety. You're standing with them. And when you make your decision about how you're going to vote on that bill, you decide whether you stand with the mob or whether you stand with the kids. And Equality Florida is always going to stand with young people being themselves and having not just a school that's free of bullying and harassment, but a place where they can be their authentic selves and thrive. So to everybody who has been part of our in-district lobby visits, for everyone who has year after year traveled to Tallahassee, especially the folks from South Florida that make that trip. You know, I often tell people when you're in the Panhandle, you're almost as close to Chicago as you are to Key West. So it's a huge commitment. It makes a difference. There's nothing more powerful than us telling our stories, telling our truth, and demanding to be treated as equals under the law. And so I just want to say that everything that we celebrate, every victory we celebrate is only possible because you've invested your time and your treasure, your story, and your passion into this work. And so to you, I toast you and I thank you. And I send it back to our dynamic duo of John Harris and Brandon Wolf.
Wow. Thank you, Nadine. You always, you just take the words right out of my mouth. But I am also joining you in a toast to everyone who has made all of our work possible and everyone who chooses to always stand on the side of young people and not on the side across the line from them. So thank you so much for your powerful words, Nadine.
Absolutely. And our crew on the ground in Brevard yesterday was just amazing to see how quickly they organized and got their turnout numbers so that they were outnumbering our opponents 2-1. It was fantastic. A huge tip of the hat to y'all. So thank you so much. If you want to get involved, again, we've got action alerts so that you can take online action throughout the day today if you haven't had a chance to already. And also importantly, one quick plug before we bring in our first special guest, we would love for you to join our Equality Florida Lobby Days. We have our last session of lobby visits happening next week. you can still sign up. We will get the registration link into the comments. We would love to have you participate virtually. It is all on Zoom. I personally am really bummed to not be able to see all of our citizen activists from around the state in Tallahassee. It is always such a highlight of session for me, but the pandemic is what it is, so we are online and virtual this year. But with that, I'd love to bring on our first guest for tonight, Senator Jason Pizzo. If there is a Senate office that I spent the most time in last session, it was without a doubt Senator Pizzo's office. Unending patience from the senator and his staff.
You have your bill.
Yeah, probably paying rent, but just, a tremendous advocate. We are so fortunate and excited to have you in the Senate and doing such great work. So welcome, Senator Pizzo.
Thanks for having me. Delighted to be here.
We're so glad you're here.
Well, on that note, the legislation that we have worked most closely together on is Hiv Modernization. We know that bill is filed again this year. It's the Senate Bill 1618 this time around. And Senator, if you could just remind us a little bit about what that bill aims to do and talk about, where you see it headed as it starts in health policy. We'd love to hear a little update.
So I'll take a procedural process first, which is the sort of into the weeds and inside baseball kind of aspect. Based on the subject matter of any particular bill, as you remember from Schoolhouse Rock, I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill. It mirrors the same here in the state system. So we have the House and we have the Senate. So Representative Duran and I, on this bill in particular, we've been referenced to a number of committees. Now, if you're referenced to 4 committees, that's a very bad sign. But we got referenced to 3, which is good. And as luck would have it, I'm the chair of one of the 3 committees. So what we need to do is get it heard on health policy. And what I reminded my colleague today, Senator Manny Diaz, by text is, hey, man, this is the bill that you sort of helped edit a little bit because we had a lot of headwinds when we first made the introduction of the bill. So I reminded him, hint, hint. So we hope to get on that agenda, which would be the first committee. My criminal justice committee would be the second. And then we'd obviously, hope to make it to the third. Unfortunately, just coming off as I'm joining you, just coming off hearing HB1 in the House has now passed its third committee. We seem to be going in this continued sort of hyper-partisan and polarized situation that's falling along party lines. But really, the greatest casualties of this polarization are really things where we've been able to meet sort of halfway or either with negotiation or compromise to get people on the right side of justice, on the right side of issues, and just to be decent people, as part of a community and a social contract. And the greatest casualty to what we're seeing with this polarization is those other issues that were traditionally also partisan or split down party lines are now making people sort of draw the line and step back and retreat and not want to engage. Less so on the Senate side. I will say that objectively. I just tell you by the pace of certain bills and by introduction. One of the incredible honors of being named as chair of criminal justice is we got to hear a hate crimes bill recently, SB 194. I'm not saying it would have been impossible to get that onto the agenda, with someone else at the chair, but I think it kind of helped that we're there. And we talked it out and we tried to change the dynamic. I don't know how long they're going to let me sit in the chair position, if things get unruly. But the very first meeting, what we did was we tried to educate our colleagues on what is criminal justice. What's the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony? What's the exposure? What are you looking at? Not just degrees of felony, but also, levels of offenses and how things score. And we use that sort of as a baseline data set for people to understand who were otherwise uncomfortable engaging. What's scary, and I know you guys appreciate this, more so than others, is even some of the people I serve with, is that, all the other committees and things that we talk about are economic related, policy related, right? So banking and insurance, finance and tax, agriculture, oranges and avocados, great. But our committee deals with liberty. Our committee deals with your freedom. And so it's dangerous to me. It's really flying without any type of plan when people are talking about or campaigning about or using terms and buzzwords and buzz phrases that they don't know what the meaning is. But then they come into a committee and then the floor and vote on something. It's like the ultimate 5th grade cheating on your math test. Like, how are you voting on this? Without knowing the substance and structure and material and the content therein, is beyond lazy when it comes to liberty and freedom. It's dangerous. And we've seen a lot of that. So without trying to embarrass anybody or call anybody out, I'm told that our first committee meeting has been viewed many times by others on their smartphones to understand criminal justice. Now, where does that leave us with these bills? On the hate crimes bill that we heard, a good indicator or sign of, oh my God, was it passed 5-2 in our committee. There are only 3 Democrats in our committee. There are 5 Republicans. And so 2 Republicans voted with us on that bill. It was shortly thereafter re-referenced to another committee,
Right.
which was like, we done well, right? I mean, we scared somebody. But that's movement. Is it incremental? To be certain, absolutely. I consider it a win because, again, going back to the hyper partisanship and polarization that we're seeing now, we're taking steps backwards. That's really where we are. We're taking steps backwards. We've seen and we've been hit immediately with things that attack unions, things that attack civil rights and social justice and all that right from the get-go. So we are really sort of pushing as hard as we possibly can. On our bill, and John, as you know this, and you and I have sort of shaped the narrative on our bill this year. It's SB 1618, is really just for parity, for actual equality. Equality, not necessarily even, we don't have to make, as you know, arguments up here that are purely ideological or philosophical. Sometimes you can make economic arguments. Sometimes you just make compare and contrast arguments. And today, with where we're trying to go, and even my Republican colleagues campaigning and acquiescing and agreeing that prevention is always less expensive, both emotionally, medically, and just, societally, just better prevention, and that the treatment's available, how antiquated that so many of these stigmas that still continue, it just makes sense, right? John, you and I were even talking about in the middle of last year, it's like, well, how are they going to treat COVID? Right? I mean, we have misdemeanors that are, gonorrhea, chlamydia, and all this stuff, and HIV still remains in the felony atmosphere. But how do you treat COVID with a much, with high death rates and infection rates and all that stuff? And we're seeing bills that right off the get-go give everyone liability immunity from COVID, right? If there was a great pandemic that was stretching further into other demographics, would we see the same kind of response? I would hope so, but I doubt it. So really, it's just pushing for parity, really, and it's not unreasonable. There's been, even internally, even amongst our party and on this bill in particular, we've had some conversations about things that should be in and should not be out. But the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, having to educate our colleagues on, there's the crime itself, but then there's other implications and consequences. Being convicted of this puts you basically as a sex offender. Now, what does that also mean? Well, 5,148,000 Floridians voted overwhelmingly yes for Amendment 4.
That's right.
Who did it accept? Who did it carve out? It carved out murder and sex offenses. Well, what's considered a sex offense? And when you talk about it in those terms, like, whoa, this shouldn't preclude people from voting. Oh, but it does. So it's a bit of whack-a-mole. It's when you press a button here, where are the other implications? And, I'm mindful of these things. Sometimes it's chess playing, not checkers, right? I'm mindful of these things because there's a couple bad bills being proposed in the legislature where they're not even mindful of what some of the implications are, right? I mean, there's some bills that are filed that if you wear a mask while you're committing a particular crime, it's actually enhanced, but they're not, I don't think about it in those terms. So I'm deeply concerned about the steps that are being taken backwards. But, I never thought I'd quote Ted Kennedy, but, the dream goes on, the fight continues, and the fire never dies. But, it's high time. We've been knocking on the door. Again, I know it sounds awful to my colleagues in the House, but just the Senate's a better place.
We won't tell them. We won't tell them that you said that.
No, not the first time we've heard it. But we also know, you've made great progress on the HIV modernization bill in past sessions. So we're excited to see what momentum we can pick up this time around.
Sure.
Yeah, and I also just want to note, because you breezed past this, and I think it's like a humble moment for you, but There were just 3 Democrats chosen to chair Senate committees this session. And you are at the helm of the Criminal Justice Committee, which, arguably is at the center of so much of what our discourse is right now. So that is a huge deal. We are so grateful that you are there. We're grateful that you're taking that that role with a ton of responsibility and educating your peers in a way that allows them to come on this journey too. I personally am really hopeful that that means that there's hope on the horizon. I think with you in that chair, there definitely is. While we still have you, you talked about creating parity and about sort of stopping the slide backward. I wonder if you have, 1 or 2 priority issues that you think are tops in the Senate this year.
So the award I'm told I'm supposed to be most thrilled with or appreciative of is Defender of Home Rule from the Florida League of Cities. And I'm like, what? But I didn't pass any bills that, I remember, saying, I hate getting awards. I hate getting presents. I hate, we have a strict no gift policy in this office. But and it's because there were a lot of bad bills that apparently I was credited with killing. And that continues to be the mission. And I'm okay with that role. We're an office that doesn't have a lot of pride of authorship. I have pride, great pride, but not an authorship of certain things. So there are no shortage of bad ones this year as well. And if we can chip away, if we know the momentum and the inertia is there. So, this session, we've been conspicuously silent on a couple of them because we don't want to make our position known. So there's no reason or excuse for someone to re-reference something or to remove us as in our position. So, everyone, as far as we're concerned publicly, would have to say that we are completely fair and impartial on each and everything. But good luck when you get to the podium. We're ready. We do our homework. We're kind of like nerdy, and we're very nerdy, but it's okay. And my staff is amazing. I don't mind saying that. Relative to a lot of my colleagues who have eager, young, enthusiastic young professionals looking to get in the game. All of my staff took huge pay cuts to be here and gave up doing other much more lucrative things because they have subject matter expertise, because they have an incredible work ethic. And John knows this. Maggie and my chief of staff will answer an email at 2:00 in the morning. At 6:30, I expect 2 of my staff members will be here till at least 9:00 tonight. It's just the way we are. I'm most excited about the stuff that I know that I could make a change on, but it won't have my name on it. It's okay. I mean, really just it's like my position and how I feel about, when we had years-long conversations beginning in West Wing about LGBT in the military, right? And I remember my father saying to me, he goes, don't ever worry about who your hero is or what they look like or who they love. Just on the competency, and that's all we ever want. That's what equality means. Not about equal outcomes, but about equal opportunity, about equal access. That's all it should ever be. And a lot of us, most of us, should want to be judged on the merit of our ideas, the strength of our character, and so on and so forth. It's just the way we were raised. Now, I could be a little brash. I could be a little. Some people, will say, cocky or arrogant or like that. I just come straight ahead at a particular speed. The truth is the easiest thing to remember. And I will tell you, gentlemen, that there's really no good reason on some of the bills that we filed to say no. There's this HIV bill, there's no good, valid reason to say no. And I hope it gets heard. And if for nothing else, I hope it gets heard so I can hear people try to articulate why they would say no.
Yeah.
Well, talking about how you run your committee, I could certainly see your assistant state attorney hat being worn in that criminal justice committee when we were talking about hate crimes. It was a real learning opportunity, I think, for some of the folks on the committee, and really helped foster a much more substantive dialogue, frankly, than I often see when bills come up for debate. So I don't know if that's something that you're seeing more of in criminal justice generally.
No.
Where that's coming from.
Yeah, but we're making it like okay for people to start talking. I could tell. We used to pick juries, right? I used to pick juries for very serious violent crimes and trials, dozens of them. And so you feel the vibe of the room out of your periphery. You could tell the tension, whatever. And we had someone get up and make a comment wearing a T-shirt at the Tucker Center that said, Black, trans, and proud, right? And I could tell there's a couple members that were sort of on the fence about votes, whatever. And I said, listen, let's have a conversation. No formality, no Mr. Chair, thank you through the chair. Let's just talk about it. Listen, I know there's people sitting on this dais that are bothered by the fact that someone wears a T-shirt that says Black trans because you wouldn't wear a T-shirt that says white Christian male on it. I get that, but let's talk about it. This is where that doesn't happen in committee meetings. And so we're trying to not validate, people's ignorances or perceptions or preconceived notions, but at least make them feel comfortable to talk about them and talk through them, which you don't see in a lot of committees.
And I think, what I appreciate about that is I think that mirrors the work that we try to do every single day. We have a keen awareness for the fact that a lot of opponents to equality know that there's, misunderstandings and misrepresentations about who people are and how they live, and they prey on those things, right? And they sort of manipulate our idea of what is fair and what is just in the world in order to get us to believe things that maybe only confirm our worldview. And so, I appreciate that you've created an environment where, people can learn, people can understand the work that they're doing, and they're not just flying blind. I think that's critical to how we move forward.
Happy to do the work.
Senator, if we could steal you for one last question,
sure.
Perhaps. I am really interested in...
I'm not running for governor.
Well, we'll see if there are any other announcements about that this evening. We've got a really dynamic,
I know. I think Commissioner Freed follows me.
She does.
She
might be a potential candidate.
Right. If you want to stick around and pose a question, we'd love to have you stay. But I know you've also done a lot of work on the criminal punishment code and the task force that you worked on over the summer. And just interested to hear anything that we can expect to see movement on in that vein.
Yes, I have to get through. Do you remember the first time your parents left you home alone? And they kind of came back like hoping everything was fine, that you didn't break anything, nothing burned down, That's pretty much, I think, how I'm being looked at for the first session as chair of criminal justice, especially in this environment. But the 800 plus hours that we spent, the 23 meetings, over 564 felony, so into the weeds that you can ask a member of the legislature that doesn't do this as a profession, whatever, what's a second degree felony? They have no idea, right? What's a level 9 on the offense level chart for score sheet purposes? No idea. Those things affect people's liberty. I think we're going to be able to adjust to make certain adjustments. One thing that we passed yesterday in my committee that I'm really proud of, and it's so short, it's like a Muhammad Ali poem of me and then we, is we took out in statute for years, it said the primary purpose of the criminal justice system is to punish. And we took out punish and replaced it with public safety.
Yeah. Because
that just sort of, attracts an entirely different conversation, entirely different mindset. So is the governor-elect coming on?
I think we are still awaiting her arrival.
Okay, more questions.
Well, I am really excited about that change. And while it might feel like just a semantic change, I think it's also true with the HIV modernization legislation that you've been championing. So long those statutes on HIV that we're trying to address have been looked at as just a punishment, and we haven't stopped to think about what the public health implications are, and the fact that they're really working against public health. I
was 10 years old when the law was passed, criminalizing it. It was sometime almost a year, I think almost to the day before the first treatment came out for HIV. So it's completely antiquated. And this, especially the Senate, has done a very good job of cleaning up, finding, locating, bringing to the surface, and cleaning up a number of issues that have been antiquated. For instance, not to bore everybody, but we're on the subject, the grand theft amount, okay? What's the difference between a misdemeanor, 1 year in jail, a felony, at least 5 years in prison, up to 5 years in prison? Was $300 forever, like forever, for your entire life, before Brandon was born, okay? It's been $300.
He's much younger than I am.
That's why I said Brandon. That's why I didn't say you or me. But, we raised it to $750. Should it have been maybe $1,000? Yeah, when you think of a grand or grand theft, you think of $1,000 or more. But we raised it to $750, and that's like, an antiquated thing. The vandalism, portion of HB1 that's out says $200. It's been $200 since 1974, right? So I think anything outside of how much you love, your partner, your spouse, your family, whatever, has to change. Someone quoted me yesterday, well, this has been around since 1987. I said, yeah. And you know what? The U.S. Constitution was drafted in 1787, but things changed from that one too. So you can't be, afraid to make amendments and make change.
Well, you don't have to convince us that we need a little modernization on a lot of things.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we're so appreciative of you. And again, I'm so grateful that you are in the position you are in, that you're leading the charge. It's just an absolute pleasure to be changing the world alongside you. And we're grateful that you could spend a little time with us this evening as well.
Of course.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Senator.
We know
John,
another one of those pieces of legislation that we feel like is very overdue when we talk about modernizing our laws is legislation that, again, Representative Michelle Rayner Goolsbee had a chance to talk to us about this morning on repealing Florida's marriage ban.
Yeah.
Brandon, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that bill, but it is certainly on Equality Florida's short list of top priorities.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Something that struck me that Senator Pizzo said was there's no good reason to reject or oppose some of these bills. And I feel like the repeal of Florida's ban on marriage equality is one of those things that it's very difficult to explain why you would oppose it. Florida, of course, for those who are watching, if you're just tuning in and just learning with us, Florida still has a ban on same-sex marriage on the books today, even though the Supreme Court ruled that marriage equality was the law of the land. Florida's ban still exists, and Representative Rayner Goolsbee has introduced a repealer to that bill so that we could actually codify marriage equality in the state of Florida, make the laws match the laws nationwide. And again, this is a bill that's natural. There's no reason to oppose it today. I'm really excited to see where she can take it. She's the right person to be leading the bill as a woman who is married to the love of her life. And I'm just really excited to have the representation in the state legislature and those representatives leading the charge on issues that are so critical to us.
Absolutely. And speaking of exciting, I believe we also have our next special guest in the waiting room. If you want to do a little introduction, Brandon.
I do. I am really excited about our next speaker. We gave a little teaser. Senator Pizzo could just not wait to bring her on. She's born and raised in Miami. She is our 12th Florida Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services. She's the first woman to serve in this position in Florida's history. She's also the first Democrat to hold this office since 2001. And I just have to put this plug in there. She is also our only statewide elected Democrat. We are really excited to welcome Commissioner Nikki Freed.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. And really thank you, Joe and Brandon, for that introduction. It's great to see you both, and thank you for inviting me to the first ever Pride at the Capitol. That's so exciting. I'm honored to be here with Equality Florida, a leader in advocating for LGBTQ rights here in the state of Florida. And I just want to, I know I've met so many of you along my path to getting here and have become really close and such friends with so many of you. But I want to also share a story of why this is personal to me. This isn't just me advocating. That, some of you may have heard this before, and I continue to tell the story is, back when I was in high school, my stepbrother, who is a year and a half older than me, when he was a senior in high school, came out to me. And he was scared to tell our parents. He was scared to tell, his family and friends. And I walked him through everything and held his hand the whole time. But then I saw, the discrimination that came afterwards and saw all of the challenges that he has had in his life. And, again, this is personal. And unfortunately, he has contracted HIV/AIDS and now is living with that every single day. And so when I talk about these issues, I think of him. And I think about ways that I want to make his life better, want to make sure that he's got opportunities that everybody else has, because that's ridiculous to be legislating about who you love and how you can live your lives based on that is ludicrous. And so I will continue to, I was going to pride parades back in high school when that was, you know, we didn't have, there wasn't a lot of straight allies always along the way. But I was going to, you know, pride parades back in the day, and I will continue to be a fierce fighter. And you know, when I came inside the department, that I knew was one of the first things that I had to do. And that's what we did. We adopted the first ever state discrimination policy and revised our state discrimination policy to include LGBTQ individuals through all of our department. The first comprehensive sexual orientation and gender identity workplace protections in the entire Florida cabinet. And then we made another huge decision, another promise that I had given to so many of my allies and my friends. We created a LGBTQ consumer advocate inside the department. Again, this is something that I knew we had to do. Hearing the stories that there's such targeted fraud and crimes against members of this community, knew that we needed somebody who was going to consistently advocate and say from a different perspective of where some of that fraud and some of the target was. So I was able to find the most perfect person to fill that
That's right.
role. And
Yes, we agree.
and I will consistently and constantly call out Nick Harris for being such a tremendous advocate and such an incredible addition to the department. And really, I'm just so, every single time I see things that she's doing in the community, she just makes me more and more proud every single day of all the other things that she has been able to accomplish, both on a personal level, but through the department. We also called on all of our state agencies to follow suit with the similar policies. This is long overdue measure. For inclusivity and equality, the majority of Fortune 500 companies already have. So why is it that our state agencies don't have it? And I will always be committed to speaking out against anti-LGBTQ bills, which unfortunately, it just blows my mind that some of the bills that are filed in 2021 in a state like Florida, that is one of the most diverse states in the nation, that we're even having these conversations. It is, I feel like we're back in like the 30s and 40s, and it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But I will continue to fight. I mean, we know that last session, there were 8 of those pieces of legislation that were filed, everything from gutting unemployment protections, enabling psychoscience conversion therapy, which again, when I heard that this was still a thing, it really, it was something new to me that this was even something that we still talk about in like this generation. And then they started passing legislation on it. It made me very mad. And of course, jailing our doctors for providing medical care for our LGBTQ youth. And unfortunately, a lot of that pieces of legislation are back on the table again. The other thing that you know, I'm fully well aware of and continue talking about is gun violence, which continues to disproportionately impact our minority communities, especially our Black transgender women. And so this is something, and of course, we know what happened at Pulse, and that was targeted hate. And we've got to make sure that we are rising above that and teaching love and acceptance and education. And then the concealed weapons program, we also oversee. We need to make sure that it was more efficient and accountable. Now that we have these major changes that have been inside the department, how to make sure that the concealed weapons program was what I promised you all when I ran. One, we were going to come in and clean house, bring in accountability, make sure every single person gets a background check. That my predecessor allowed 13 months, no background checks to happen, and about 300 people fell through the cracks. And the other really important thing that we did inside of the concealed weapons program, a promise that I made, we kicked the NRA out of the Department of Agriculture. The NRA had way too much influence and power with the commissioner. He even called himself an NRA sellout. And the people inside of our department we're getting emails and messages all the time from Marion Hammer and members of the NRA on influencing on policies and decision makings on the concealed weapon. So we did not give them a welcome mat. We gave them a kick out the front door, and they have no impact and influence at all inside of the department. So huge wins of all around. And then this session, we're working on ensuring more safety in the concealed carrying permit program. Common sense measures to close dangerous loopholes on our out-of-state crimes, fingerprint retention for concealed weapons or fire licenses, similar to our Chapter 493 licensing program, and real-time notifications to the department through FDLE and what's called Falcon system to make sure that we are getting up to date on any of our out-of-state arrests that may impact somebody's concealed weapons permit. And just in close, we're here for you. FDAX is here to be advocates, to be allies, to listen, to learn, and to learn ways that we can make it better, and to help and support our LGBTQ Floridians and our families, and to protect all of your rights. So I am so honored to be here today with you all, and am so proud of all of your all's accomplishments. And really, it is a great pride part of this day.
Well, we are so thrilled to have you in your leadership role. You've really done a tremendous job of setting the tone, particularly with those non-discrimination protections that you put in place right off the bat. We see a direct connection between steps like that and what the Florida Commission on Human Relations has recently recognized, extending those non-discrimination protections to the LGBTQ community statewide. I mean, all of those steps really set the foundation for the commission with the right leadership to reach those sort of conclusions. And I was just curious about how that was received at the time you took those steps. Did you hear anything from your other colleagues in the cabinet about those non-discrimination moves? Were there questions or any pushback, or were folks just bewildered by it?
No, I think I didn't hear any pushback from any of my fellow colleagues. I wish that they would have followed suit. I did, though, not to do a full shout out to this person and for all of his other issues, but did receive a phone call from even Congressman Gates, where he said, "Hey," and we've gone back a long ways, when he was in the legislature here in Florida, and he said, "Hey, I saw that you changed your anti-discrimination policy. That's so cool. Why is no one else doing it?" I was like, "I don't know. Go talk to the other members of your party."
That's right.
I hope you're taking notes on that, John Harris. You heard it here first. We've got
calls to make
in our corner.
Right. And so, and he's like, "Well, then I'm going to do it inside of at least my office." And I said, "Fantastic. This is what it's supposed to be. This should have never been a partisan issue to begin with." And so you saw, even people from the Republican Party kind of waking up and seeing that this is just the right thing to do, and it's way overdue. But I didn't hear any pushback whatsoever. More just applause from, not only from, the LGBTQ community, but really, quite honestly, the Democratic Party, who have been a fierce supporter of rights.
Well, I just have to tell you from a very personal place, I love that you not only touched on LGBTQ issues, you touched on, people living with HIV, you touched on gun violence and violence against Black trans women. For me, the community really is such a web of people, right? We're a big umbrella, and to be LGBTQ doesn't mean to just be LGBTQ. It means to be a lot of other things as well. So the last question that I have for you is just how you think the department right now can help Floridians who are facing discrimination.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do, and so the biggest thing is to make sure you're reporting it, whether it's, to Nick or it's to other members of our community. That's what we do every single day. We do investigations, and we go after it, and we bring light to situations. I think that's something that we really have missed a lot in the last 25, 30 years, is that I've got a bully pulpit, and I've got a very loud horn that I get to scream into. And so when I see and the same thing in the marijuana world, when somebody has been fired for usage of marijuana when they have their medical marijuana card, I get to talk out about those things, and it gets elevated. It's not just a small little story, but it's a national story or statewide story. And so I get to use kind of my voice to talk about these things, to bring light to it, and to make sure that we are moving the ball forward and to go after those people who have either discriminated others or are actually teaching hate. And so this is something that I learned a long time ago. I come from the Jewish community of Miami, and I am somebody who was taught at a very young age to kun olam, to heal the world. And that's something that is deep embedded into me, somebody who has gone to Poland and seen the concentration camps and saw how people said nothing during the Holocaust, and 6 million Jews and 6 million others were killed because people were silent. And so I know that it's part of my duty as a human being to speak out and speak loudly when I see injustice in the world, because no one spoke out for us. And so I take that responsibility very seriously every single day of my life.
Well, thank you so much for using your voice to speak out in the way you have, and particularly for all segments of our community. I see Nick is right now in the chat, also elevating ways that folks can reach out if they're in need of help or facing those sorts of discrimination. So you have a fabulous team, and we so appreciate you joining us and doing the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for everything that you are doing. And I think you all know how to find me and where to find me, and know that I am here every step along the way.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate it. Just fabulous. And I love, hearing on every level of government, just the kind of support that exists for the LGBTQ community. I know it's easy to look at the results of a single election and get a little bit down in the dumps and maybe fear a little bit of despair. But it is really important to note that we have incredible champions here in the state of Florida, and we're so excited to have them on the line tonight. And speaking of champions, I am really excited about our next champion. You will know her very well, especially if you're active online. She will tell you that she is born and raised in Orlando. She's the daughter of working class immigrants who came to Florida from Iran in the search of the American dream. In 2018, she flipped her seat here in downtown Orlando, and in 2020, she won re-election by an overwhelming majority. She made history as the first Iranian American elected to any public office in Florida. She is a champion. She is an accomplice. She is my state representative. She is Representative Ana V. Escamani.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Representative. How are you?
Hi, it's great to be here. How are y'all doing?
We're good.
It's great to see you.
You too.
So, Representative, you sort of coined the term accomplice in my life, and I absolutely love it. You say you're an accomplice to the LGBTQ community. And in that vein, you are leading as a sponsor on the school voucher equality bill. I wonder if you could talk to us about where the need for that bill came from and what would it do for folks?
Oh my gosh, I would love to. And for those who don't know, when I say I'm an accomplice, it means that we are in this together through thick and thin. And I feel like the term allyship can be sometimes rather transactional, and it kind of insinuates that, I'll be by your side when things are easy, but if it gets super hard, I won't be there. An accomplice is willing to go to jail with you. An accomplice cares about justice. An accomplice cares about long-term transformational change, not just going to Pride with your rainbow t-shirt on, but like actually hitting the streets and pushing for policy to make everyone's life better, but to center ourselves on the most marginalized people. And LGBTQ plus folks, especially LGBTQ plus people of color, are some of the most marginalized folks in this state. And so the legislation that we have filed is our effort to end discrimination in publicly funded voucher schools. A lot of folks who follow education policy might already know this, but if you don't, Florida has a system that includes privatized educational options. So we have our traditional public schools. We have our charter schools, which some of my Republican colleagues will call public because they do fall under a public school system. Then you have the voucher system, which is completely private, which means we're basically giving parents the option to take a coupon to a private school that participates to pay for that tuition. These private schools don't have any type of regulations or accountability. And unfortunately, based on Orlando Sentinel reporting from a little bit over a year ago, many of these schools had anti-LGBTQ plus policies in their books, expelling students for being gay. More specifically, a lot of anti-trans language. There really does seem to be this pattern of no commentary on orientation, but a whole lot of anti-trans policies. And I don't think it's appropriate that we're giving public money to schools that have these discriminatory practices in the books. And we want to make sure every kid is safe. We want to make sure that all of our teachers can also be their authentic selves within the workplace, including within educational spaces. And so our bill really does center on just the very basic notion that if you want to have these discriminatory practices as a private institution, then you should not receive public money to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate that. And it makes common sense to me. As Senator Pizzo said, there's just some things that don't make any sense to oppose, and that's one to me.
Right. 100%. Yeah, 100%. It's a good bill.
It was terrific to see some of your floor debate on those issues last session. You're such a terrific advocate and accomplice for our community. We really adore having you in the legislature. And I know that you are aligned with Equality Florida on so many issues, not just the LGBTQ equality sort of traditional space, but also certainly around reproductive rights. And I know that you've filed a repealer this session to lift some of the undue abortion restrictions that we have existing in Florida law, but was hoping that you could just tell us a little bit what you're seeing about in that sort of reproductive rights space this session.
I would love to. I mean, the reproductive justice movement and the fight for equality are intertwined. And I'm really proud of Equality Florida over the years of really drawing that connection and encouraging your members to also take a stand on reproductive choice issues. It's all about bodily autonomy, right? It's all about being able to have the personal decision-making power that impacts my family, that impacts my personal health and well-being with the counsel of my doctor or other medical professionals, and really keeping government and politics out of those decisions. And bodily autonomy through the Supreme Court decisions has not only given the has codified the ability for marriage equality, but it's also codified the ability of right to privacy to make those medical decisions to end a pregnancy. And so these issues really are connected. And whenever they attack abortion access, they are in turn attacking LGBTQ plus rights. So we have to remember that. We have to look at these issues from an intersectional lens and not lose sight of how divide and conquer tactics are often used in politics to separate us, when in fact we really should be united. And so many folks know that I worked at Planned Parenthood for 6 years before I ran for office. And I'm really proud to say that when I was at Planned Parenthood, I worked at Southwest and Central Florida, the affiliate that's kind of the heart of Florida, down to Southwest Collier County and up to Citrus County. Had the chance to travel across the state, talking about these issues to different folks. And my close to my last year at Planned Parenthood, we actually rolled out hormone replacement therapy support. And it was a big deal. We were one of the first Planned Parenthood affiliates to actually not only train our staff on inclusivity when it comes to serving transgender and gender nonconforming patients, but to also provide a service that is so essential to folks living life as their authentic selves. And Gina Duncan played a big role with Equality Florida of helping us with that training years ago. And I was really proud of that effort because it once more demonstrated just how interconnected we are on these issues, and to be able to provide not only an STI testing and treatment for patients, but then to also be able to serve them on HRT, especially in rural parts of the state, is freaking important. And so the bills that we have filed are really, like you said, John Harris, repealing some terrible anti-abortion bills. I'm sad to say that tomorrow in one of my committees, we will have another anti-abortion bill. So we are preparing for that battle tonight, and we'll continue doing what we can to protect reproductive health and also protect our trans kids, knowing that some of the worst bills filed this session are going after our trans kids, their ability to seek gender affirming support and also play in sports.
Absolutely. And I think we can get our action link dropped in the chat once more if folks haven't had a chance to contact their lawmakers about some of those terrible anti-trans bills that we've seen this session.
I love that you talked about interconnectedness and how these issues all interweave with each other. And at Equality Florida, we call those causes in common, that we share these sort of common values that people should be treated with dignity and respect, that people's rights should be protected. So I want to close us with one cause in common that I think is near and dear to folks here in Central Florida. And that is unemployment. You have obviously gotten a lot of national attention and acclaim for your incredible response to COVID-19 and our catastrophic unemployment system. And as you know, LGBTQ people are disproportionately represented in the hospitality industry, in the theme park industry. And so this is something that's really close to us. I wonder if you could just briefly tell us about the package of reforms that you've proposed in HB 207.
Oh my gosh, I would love to, Brandon. Thank you for lifting that up. And it's important to stress too, just how damaging the broken unemployment system has been, not just for every Floridian, but thinking specifically about our LGBTQ plus Floridians, many who work in the service industry or entertainment. So many shows have been canceled. There really hasn't been the live audiences to feed into our arts and culture community like in the past. And so unemployment has impacted every person, but there definitely is a unique experience for those that live in Central Florida who contribute to our arts and culture and service economies, and not only being unemployed, but then having to get through this broken system. And our office has provided support to more than 20,000 Floridians with their unemployment claims across 64 counties in Florida. We've also provided direct cash assistance to folks. I paid for someone's medicine today. I paid to prevent cars from being repossessed. We've raised money to help folks, and I've also just used my own cash, because at the end of the day, if somebody calls my office and they're about to be homeless, I want to try to do whatever I can to at least slow down that process, to buy us more time, to get more help. And with that said, everything we're doing are just Band-Aids. We need systematic change. So we have filed legislation, House Bill 207, improving the weekly benefit amount, improving the amount of weeks available, putting into place accountability measures, timelines for how long DO can take to actually respond back to you. And we've been pretty aggressive in talking about technology improvements as well, knowing that not only are the benefits too low, but people can't even access those low benefits through the broken system called the Connect website. So it's an omnibus package. We're also talking to Republicans about what they're willing to do. I mean, then the debate is pretty frustrating, to be honest, but I'm meeting with the speaker tomorrow to talk more in depth about these issues. And I'm going to be pretty aggressive that we can't just give tax breaks to corporations. We got to focus on working people. And so we're going to be fighting for that economic equity. And I'm really thrilled that I get to do it in the place as a lawmaker and with so many amazing colleagues by my side.
Well, we are just so grateful. I am very lucky to have you representing me in Tallahassee. I know you're always going to stand on the right side of things, and I just so appreciate how in tune you are with all of these causes we have in common.
Thank you so much, Brandon. And everyone's so lucky to have y'all at Equality Florida fighting for them. Thanks for hosting this Pride at the Capitol. And I get ready for a very exciting next speaker who I know y'all are just going to love. So thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you, Rep.
Thank you for joining us. Well, with that, we will welcome on our final speaker for the night, a former colleague to Representative Anna Eskamani, now in the Senate, Senator Chevron Jones. So, hey, Chev, how are you?
I'm well. How y'all doing?
We are good. We are thrilled to be joined by the first out lawmaker in the Senate in Florida's history. It is, an honor to be in the company of such a history maker, and generally somebody who is just so loved throughout the process, in an environment where there are a lot of passions and a lot of tensions and a lot of tempers. It seems like one thing everybody can agree on is how much they love working with Chev. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank y'all. It's so good to see you and Brandon. Oh, it's been a minute, and it's weird because John, I'm used to seeing you walking around the Capitol, but that's not happening this year. But I'm sure I will see you. And Brandon, of course, I know you would have been here for HB1 in these halls.
I would have been. Yes, I would have been. I'm there in spirit. I'm there virtually. And yeah, it's really good to see you. You're welcome back in Orlando whenever it's safe and healthy to do so. I want I want to hover on that history making piece though, because that's what it's just so inspiring to me. I remember being a kid, growing up as a queer person of color, and being told that the world wasn't ready for someone like me, that I couldn't be an elected leader, that I couldn't be an attorney, that I couldn't go off and be a movie star, that all those things were out of reach if I wanted to be my authentic self. So I wonder if you can just touch on, what does that milestone mean to you to be the first out lawmaker in the state Senate? And what does it mean to be the representation that we always talk about?
Brandon, it's crazy because you're probably like me and so many others. Because I tell people, when you tell me I can't do something, I'm gonna show you that I can. And they also told Barack Obama that he wouldn't be president, and he was one of the best. I'll say this, that not only does representation matters, representation is essential. There's an old saying that you all, I'm sure, are familiar with because you've heard it before, because I've said it, and that if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. Being able to have that conversation and to be the person who say, well, you can say whatever you want to say on Twitter, you can say whatever you want to say on Facebook, you can say whatever you want to say on Fox News. Well, you say it in front of my face while I'm sitting here. It changes the conversation and makes it for a very difficult conversation. And I don't care who you are. And I'm proud to be the first LGBTQ person elected to the Florida Senate. So much so that I have to give it to Senate President Simpson because he made it clear that if there's any legislation that comes forth that I believe that makes me uncomfortable as a member of the LGBTQ community, to let him know. And that's what representation does. Representation does it doesn't call people out; it calls people in to help me to educate you, to let you know that I'm a human being. I'm no different than who you are, and what you become. And I think it's important that you continue. We have to continue to remind people of those things, because so often we can go sit in our corners and sit in our box and say, well, I don't like this person, or I don't care for this person. But it's up to us to making sure that we educate people on why it's not okay.
Well said.
Yeah, perfectly said. Well, I wanted to. Sorry, I'm marinating. I'm like having a moment here where I'm just marinating on the authenticity of showing up in a space and how far we have come as a community for you to be able to stand there in your truth and have leaders, tell you that you deserve to feel comfortable and appreciated in a space that, historically has not had folks like us in it. So I am very moved. I'm very inspired. I am living in a new age where I think anything is possible, and you are a huge part of that. So I just appreciate that.
Oh, Brandon, Brandon, I'll say this. That's people always say it's half the battle, showing up. But showing up is a big deal. And even showing up as your authentic self, it is truly a big deal to do that, because you don't know what to expect when you show up as your true self, right? We don't know how people will take you. But I promise you, no one has made me feel uncomfortable over here in these chambers. And even when I was in the other chambers, no one made me feel uncomfortable. I'm telling you, it changes the dynamic. And that's why I respect Carlos so much, because he stands firm in who he is, and he let people know blatantly that this is who I am. And I dare you to challenge me in me living my truth, right? And so when you show up, it's a huge deal. So I just need to make sure I say that.
I love that.
And I think for all of you history-making lawmakers that we're so thrilled to have in the legislature, it's really true. Y'all are our community's wildest dreams. We never thought it was possible until y'all ran, got the seats, and did it.
Yeah.
So we're so thrilled to be able to work with you guys in this capacity.
Yeah, truly.
I'm happy. I'm enjoying it. I love representing people. Yes.
I love it. And for anyone watching, we are at our most powerful when we are living authentically. So please take it from us and live your truth. So I want to talk a little bit about, you talked about, feeling comfortable in both chambers. You did move from the House to the Senate, for those who are watching. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the dynamics. How are they different in the upper chamber? Is it different to work across the aisle in the Senate than it was in the House?
You know what? It's so funny because, in the House, everything is very top down. So everything comes from the fourth floor. If you want to get your bill heard, you have to go to the fourth floor, let the speaker know. Well, if you're in the minority party, you have to let the speaker know this is what this does. This is how it benefits my community. And sometimes, well, I know I did it different because I really want to go home and take some wins home for my community. So I kind of censored how I kind of walked in certain areas. But it's different in the Senate because I'll tell you a quick story. Committee week, I wanted to get my bill heard. And so I'm used to writing the letters, setting up a meeting with the chair and all this stuff. So I did that with one of the chairs for the committee. I said, I have a bill that's up in your committee. I want to know if I can sit down and talk with you about the committee. He said, you're in the Senate now. We're going to have to sit down and talk. He said, I'll put your bill up next week. You got to work your own bill. It's up to you whether or not it passed or not. And that's where it's at. I mean, next week I got 3 bills up. This week I had 1. And so your bill will move, but the difference is it's like, and people used to always say it, John, you know it. It is literally like 40 warlords over here. Everyone is doing their own thing, and everyone has their pet project that they want, and you have to respect that, and hopefully you do your due diligence.
Well, we're really excited to get to watch you in the process and see you moving some of those bills along, even like yesterday on the Dignity for Incarcerated Women bill. I know an issue that you've been working on for in different capacities on different pieces of legislation and having some great success for several years. So always excited to see that. And really your legislative slate reflects a number of racial justice issues that are so important, particularly as we come out of the summer where there was so much protest and focus on sort of a reckoning in America and recognizing how far we have to go. But in a time where we're also talking about that a lot within the LGBTQ community and recognizing that when we talk about securing full equality for Florida's LGBTQ community, that means equality for everyone, right? Including our folks of color and so many who've been sort of at the margins, even within our a community that's already marginalized. So I know you've got a bill out there addressing qualified immunity that you are working on with Representative Michelle Rayner. That is Senate Bill 670. Also the Dignity for Incarcerated Women bill that we talked about, 1426. So just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about these bills and sort of what momentum you're seeing on those issues in this session.
So qualified immunity probably will not get heard, and which I'm okay with because I will continue to make noise when it comes to the racial injustices that happen in this country when it comes to police against Black and brown men and women, right? Sheriff Gutierrez made a comment about our qualified immunity bill for Michelle Rayner and I, and said that it was self-serving rhetoric that we have filed, and that is the reason why I and others we file the type of legislation that we do because of flippant comments like that, right? Because if you are an individual you're in a place to protect and serve, the first thing you should have done is say, you know what? Let me see why this is important to Senator Jones and Representative Michelle Rayner Gooseby. Let me talk with them and see how we can either A, make the bill better, or B, we can show you what we're already doing, right? Because right now the police officers are the only ones who can violate someone's rights. And even in violating my rights, you are protected. And even if I'm a dead man, you're protected by it, right? And even there are some Republicans who agree with ending qualified immunity. I know the Supreme Court came with its ruling, doesn't mean that it's right? It's still wrong. So that's one. Dignity for Incarcerated Women. I have a love for the group who supports it. I believe that I don't care where an individual is in their life, they are human beings and they should be treated as such, right? And so I will continue to push whatever legislation they have. There's one that I didn't think it was going to get a hearing, but it has a hearing next week. And that's the Senate Joint Resolution condemning white nationalism and white supremacy. That is a huge deal. Someone sent me a message and said I can send you to what did the email say? I can send you to Tallahassee to fight. They're basically talking about social justice things. I wanted to respond back to them, but I hope that they're watching. because I want to make it clear. Like, people sent me to Tallahassee to fight, period. And whatever that line is, that's what that is. And I promise you this, as long as Chevron Dion Jones is here in Tallahassee, I can guarantee you one thing. I will fight like hell if anybody, any race, anyone is being discriminated against, because that's why we have a seat at the table, for that very reason, especially me as a Black man. I know I'm part of the LGBTQ community, but I'm Black first, and I'm gonna fight hard. That's against HB1, against everything, against the voting suppression bills that's coming forth. What else do people expect us to do? You expect us to sit here just because we're on the back row and say nothing? No, that's not how this works. I'll make sure we'll give you hell, and we'll make sure we'll give you something to talk about. I know I am.
I love that. That is representation. That is what it looks like to go and live your truth and fight authentically for your communities. There is a reason that you were elected to that seat, and I am in awe of you taking control of your power and making sure that we are heard every single day.
Brandon, listen, John, we need to advocate. I'm about to go on Twitter in a few minutes, and I'm going to tweet Joy and tell Joy that MSNBC need to give Brandon a show as soon as possible, because I'm sick of seeing him just on these type of shows, and he's doing such a great job.
I think these screens are too small for Brandon. He needs a bigger box.
Right. Coming to a movie theater near you post-COVID.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us. We know you're such a tremendous fighter. It reminds me of your comments on the House floor last session, talking about advocacy for Black youth, particularly in your communities. And they and all of us are so fortunate to have you in the process as a really outspoken leader for those communities that need more representation at the table.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you, John. I appreciate both you and Brandon, because I'll be honest with you, you both, you give us the momentum that we need on bad days to keep going, and give us the reason why we should be doing. And we need friends like you to be that constant reminder that, you know what, we're behind you 100%. Even if you're not here, we know we're putting good energy out there for you.
Good.
Well, we are behind you 100%, always and forever.
Thank you.
You mentioned that feedback that somebody gave you. We saw earlier this past week, maybe some feedback from somebody that reached out to Representative Michelle Rayner Goolsbee. We know it is not an easy place to be a leader, even as grueling a process as it is.
Yeah.
We really are indebted to the service that you all are up here doing.
Oh, thank you, John. And I appreciate this time that we presenting this space today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. Great to see you. Well, John Harris, I'm fired up. I wish that we could have been in Tallahassee. I was feeling a little glum this morning that we could not be on the party bus up to the state capitol to do Pride in person. But after the incredible tapestry that we've seen today, people engaging with lawmakers, the incredible champions of all different walks of life who are fighting for us up in Tallahassee, I am feeling incredibly inspired.
Absolutely. And for those of you watching, if you are feeling similarly inspired, again, even though you can't be in Tallahassee, there is still so much that you can do from home. We'll put our action link in the chat and would love to have your support. Really reaching out to lawmakers like the ones that we've heard from tonight, and those who really need to hear from us and aren't hearing enough from the LGBTQ community and paying attention to our needs. That is what it is all about. So thank you to those who have already done it. If you haven't, please, before you close your browser window, again, just take a minute to click through and make your voice heard, because that is what makes all the difference, as Nadine said at the start of our program.
Absolutely. Pride at the Capitol is not the end. It's really just the beginning. Session is just getting warmed up. We have an incredible amount of work to do. We talked a lot about a lot of bills. So if you're politically adjacent and you're feeling like you're swimming in legal and political jargon, just know this. We've got a lot of things to defend in this legislative session. We've got a lot of things to resist in this legislative session. We cannot do it ourselves. John Harris is going to be doing all he can in Tallahassee, but it really takes every single one of us. You heard it from Senator Jones. We are the juice. We are that energy. We are that reminder that there are hundreds of thousands, millions of constituents out here who desperately need people to fight for us in the state capitol. And when we show up, when we live authentically, when we speak our truths, when we are heard, that is when change is possible. So I know we're just getting started, John Harris. It's been a beautiful day, Pride at the Capitol. Thank you for making it happen.
Of course. Thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it.
See you soon, everybody.